Homologous chromosomes. This is a karyogram which shows the 23 pairs of human chromosomes. If we take a pair and zoom in, you will see that each chromosome consists of a pair of sister chromatids. You do not need to be too bothered by this term, but it is good to know that both sister chromatids that make up one chromosome are identical. One is a duplicate of the other. This ensures that when a cell divides for growth, the resulting cells will receive identical genetic material. Besides the sex chromosomes, X and Y, each of these pairs of chromosomes is roughly the same length and contains the same genes. These pairs are known as homologous chromosomes. Each is inherited from one parent. While they may have the same genes, the versions of those genes may differ, and we term them as alleles. Alleles are different forms of the same gene that occupy the corresponding position on homologous chromosomes. A different form simply means that the sequence of bases is slightly different. This difference can arise due to DNA mutations, which affect the mRNA and the resulting protein. For example, an mRNA sequence transcribed from DNA may normally code for the amino acid glutamic acid, but if a mutation occurs in the DNA, the resulting mRNA may instead code for the amino acid valine. This change alters the structure of the protein. In this example, the normal amino acid sequence results in soluble hemoglobin, while the mutated hemoglobin becomes insoluble, affecting its function and impacting red blood cells. Thus, when a different amino acid is added to a polypeptide chain, it can cause the protein to lose its function, alter its efficiency, or result in a protein with a new function. Alleles classified as dominant alleles are usually represented by capital letters, while recessive alleles are usually represented by lowercase letters. When both alleles are the same, as in the case of genes A and B, this combination is called homozygous. For gene A, we say that it is homozygous dominant, while gene B is homozygous recessive. When both alleles are different, as in the case of genes C and D, we say that they are heterozygous. Whether a person is homozygous or heterozygous for a gene determines their genotype, which in turn affects their phenotype. Genotype refers to the genetic makeup of an organism, or the alleles that an organism possesses. This influences the phenotype, which is the observable trait or appearance of an organism. However, it is important to note that some phenotypes can be affected by the environment. For example, genes determine skin color, but exposure to sunlight can influence the shade of that color. Additionally, different genotypes can produce the same phenotype. This is the case for dominant alleles, where the phenotype coded by the allele is expressed in both homozygous and heterozygous genotypes. For example, in the case of the gene for double eyelids, both a homozygous dominant individual and a heterozygous individual will have double eyelids. For recessive alleles, the phenotype only appears in the homozygous condition and will not be expressed in a heterozygous genotype. Before moving on to the last part, take note of how the terms gene and allele are used. A gene refers to a sequence of DNA that codes for a particular characteristic. For example, this gene codes for insulin. An allele is a specific version of a gene, which can be dominant or recessive. For example, this is the dominant allele for double eyelids, or this is the recessive allele, and an individual with two copies will have single eyelids. And all these different alleles will give rise to variation. Variation can be classified into three categories. Continuous variation exists when there is a range, such as with height, weight, and skin color. These traits are usually controlled by many genes and have an additive effect, meaning that two genes might combine to make you more muscular. These variations are also normally affected by the environment, such as how tan your skin becomes depending on sun exposure. The other group is discontinuous variation, where phenotypes are categorical, meaning you are one thing or another. For example, double or single eyelids. You can't have 3.14 eyelids. Gender is also a discontinuous phenotype, either one or the other. It is controlled by one or a few genes with no additive effect, as there is no booster that allows you to be, for instance, a sigma male without being affected by environmental factors, unless you are in South Korea. Some variations can be both continuous and discontinuous. While height is generally a continuous trait in humans, there is a condition known as dwarfism that causes a person to be significantly shorter than average. Hence, height can be both continuous and discontinuous. So what causes variation in individuals? Dwarfism is caused by a dominant allele and is often arise due to a mutation in genes. Mutation is a sudden, random change in the sequence base of a gene or in the number of chromosomes. This gives rise to different forms of the same gene, which can result in variation. An example of a change in the number of chromosomes is the case of Down's syndrome, while mutation in genes causes conditions such as sickle cell anemia, albinism, and various cancers. Mutation occurs randomly at a very low rate, but there are factors that can increase the chance of mutation in DNA, such as ionizing radiation, chemical mutagens, for example, tar found in cigarette smoke, viruses, and ultraviolet light. For Down syndrome, you just have to know that individuals have an extra copy of chromosome 21 that most likely originated from the egg. An example of a condition caused by a single gene mutation is sickle cell anemia. This mutation affects the solubility of hemoglobin, resulting in the cells clumping together and causing the red blood cells to become sickle-shaped. This lowers the oxygen carrying capacity of red blood cells and also causes an increased chance of blocking blood vessels. All of this sounds bad, but in areas where malaria is rampant, heterozygous individuals are more resistant to the parasite, which is a good example where a negative phenotype provides a survival advantage. Mutation can be harmful or beneficial, and a beneficial mutation can be harmful in a different or new environment. When an offspring gains a beneficial mutation, which gives it a beneficial trait, such as antibiotic resistance, it is more likely to survive and pass down copies of this allele to the F2 generation,